It was a cold, gray afternoon in February 1957 when the quiet woods of Philadelphia whispered a secret they had held for far too long. Tangled brambles swayed in the winter wind, and hidden among them lay a discarded box, ordinary at first glance, yet heavy with the weight of something unspeakable. Inside, wrapped in a thin checkered blanket, was the body of a young boy. No name, no note, no explanation. Just small, lifeless hands and eyes forever closed to the world. The city would soon know him as America's unknown child. For decades, his story would haunt police officers, journalists, and strangers alike, drawing them into a mystery that refused to be solved. Who was he? How had he been so carefully prepared for burial, yet abandoned like refuse? This is the story of the boy in the box, and the questions that still echo in the silence. The wind cut through the bare trees like a warning, carrying with it the brittle scent of winter. The ground was stiff with frost, the branches tangled like skeletal fingers clutching at the gray sky. It was the kind of February day when nothing moved, except the man making his way through the brambles. John Stachowiak, a young man checking his muskrat traps along a quiet stretch of Susquehanna Road, knew these woods well. But that day, something felt different. His eyes caught the shape of a large cardboard box half buried in the weeds. Its once bright lettering faded but still visible. Bassinet, J.C. Penney Co. At first, he thought it might be trash. People dumped all kinds of things here. But as he stepped closer, the air seemed to thicken. He peeled back the cardboard flaps. Inside, a small body lay curled under a cheap, checkered blanket. A boy, no older than 6, his skin pale in the cold light, his hair neatly trimmed. The sight rooted John to the spot. He backed away, his breath quickening, and hurried to find a phone. Within the hour, police cars and detectives were on scene, their boots crunching over frozen leaves. They removed the boy gently, their faces hard, but eyes betraying shock. In the stillness of the woods, cameras clicked, flashbulbs lit up the stark scene, and the bassinet box sat empty, a silent witness to a crime no one could yet name. Philadelphia had just inherited a mystery that would span generations. He was small, no more than 4 feet tall, weighing barely 30 pounds. The medical examiner estimated his age between 4 and 6, but his slight frame told a harsher story. Chronic malnourishment. His ribs pressed against skin that had long been starved of warmth, and yet there were signs someone had cared. His hair was freshly washed and neatly trimmed, his fingernails clean and clipped. His body bore no obvious signs of neglect and hygiene, only in nourishment. It was as if someone had prepared him for the world to see, or for the world to say goodbye. Wrapped around him was a cheap flannel blanket, a faded plaid in muted blues and greens. At first glance, it seemed like an ordinary scrap of bedding, but its texture was rough, worn thin in places from years of use. Detectives would later pore over it, desperate to link its weave and pattern to a manufacturer, a store, a home. But for now, the blanket was simply part of the image that would haunt Philadelphia. A nameless boy, clean but fragile, laid gently in a cardboard bassinet box. No birth certificate, no missing persons report, no family stepping forward. To the police, to the press, to the public, he became the boy without a name. Philadelphia police moved quickly. Officers fanned out across nearby neighborhoods, knocking on every door, showing the boy's sketch, asking the same painful questions. Do you know him? Have you seen him? Is anyone missing? Theories swirled almost immediately. Some believed he was a runaway, though his small size and malnourishment didn't quite fit. Others thought kidnapping was possible, that he'd been taken from a loving home only to meet a cruel end. And still, the darkest thought lingered. Perhaps no one was looking for him at all. The autopsy offered clues, but no comfort. The boy bore small scars, evidence of past medical treatment, possibly for an eye ailment. His stomach was empty, but his body showed signs of having eaten not long before death. There were bruises on his head, older marks on his legs, and injuries suggesting he'd been beaten. The official cause of death was blunt force trauma to the skull, but whether it was a sudden act of violence or the final moment in a long chain of abuse remained uncertain. Detectives combed hospitals for patient records, matching his condition, his scars, his age. They searched orphanages, foster homes, schools, anywhere a boy like this might have been known. Nothing. Days turned into weeks, and despite exhaustive efforts, the case yielded no family, no guardian, no single soul willing to claim him. The city began to realize something chilling. This was not simply a murder investigation. This was the unraveling of a life that, for reasons still unknown, had been hidden from the world until its tragic end. Not far from the spot where the box was found, less than 2 miles away, stood a sprawling, weathered house. It was a licensed foster home, the kind meant to be a sanctuary for children without one. On the outside, it looked unremarkable, even inviting. Inside, however, whispers spoke of overcrowded rooms and strict, almost cold discipline. Police couldn't overlook the proximity. The blanket that had been wrapped around the boy bore a striking resemblance to those reportedly used at the foster home. Same weave, same faded blue-green hue. Even the bassinet box itself was a brand sold locally, sometimes used to store or transport donated goods for children. Investigators began their quiet inquiries. Did anyone here know the boy? Could he have been a resident who vanished without notice? Staff members denied it. Every child, they insisted, was accounted for. Records appeared tidy, names matched faces, and yet the unease lingered. Neighbors came forward with fragments of memory, vague recollections of seeing a boy who might have looked like him. Others remembered nothing at all. Without a confirmed match, the connection remained circumstantial. The more police probed, the more the foster home seemed both tantalizingly close to the truth and frustratingly untouchable. If the boy had been there, someone had erased every trace of him, his name, his paperwork, his right to be remembered. And so, the lead that once burned brightest began to cool. Officially, it became just another avenue, explored and exhausted. Unofficially, some detectives would admit years later, they never truly stopped wondering if the answer had been sitting just up the road the entire time. In 2002, nearly half a century after the boy was found, a woman known only as Martha came forward with a story she claimed had haunted her entire life. Her voice, at times trembling, painted a dark portrait of her childhood, one dominated by her abusive mother. According to Martha, her mother had purchased the boy from his birth parents sometime in the mid-1950s. He was subjected to severe neglect and physical abuse, until, one winter night, a beating went too far. She said her mother bathed the boy, cut his hair, and placed him, lifeless, into the box before driving to the woods to dispose of him. The details she offered were chilling. She described the box in precise terms, even recalling the blanket. She claimed her mother had kept it stored in their home. These elements echoed known facts of the case, facts that had never been widely publicized. For a moment, investigators dared to believe the long cold trail had finally warmed. But cracks soon appeared in Martha's account. Timelines shifted under scrutiny. Certain events she described were proven impossible. Other critical details contradicted forensic evidence. In the end, authorities deemed her confession unreliable, the product, perhaps, of a troubled mind, blurred memories, or a desperate need for attention. Still, to some detectives, Martha's story remained an unsettling echo of the boy's fate, one that could never be fully erased from the ledger of possibilities. In the weeks after the boy's discovery, Philadelphia police launched one of the most relentless publicity campaigns in the city's history. His small face stared out from thousands of flyers, each carefully printed with the hope that someone, somewhere, would recognize him. The image was haunting, a solemn, beautiful child, eyes closed forever, but frozen in a photograph that would soon paper telephone poles, diner windows, and bus stations. Billboards across Pennsylvania carried his likeness. In post offices, supermarkets, and train depots, the boy's photograph hung like a quiet accusation. "Do you know me?" The media seized on the mystery, weaving a tapestry of speculation. Newspapers ran daily updates, each headline a mix of hope and heartbreak. Reporters pieced together theories, some plausible, others bizarre, and the public devoured every word. Radio broadcasts recounted the details, their announcers' voices heavy with disbelief. Even television segments, rare for crime coverage in the 1950s, showcased the boy's story to living rooms across the nation. The public response was unlike anything detectives had expected. Letters arrived from all corners of America. Some claimed to have seen the boy in another city. Others swore he looked just like a neighbor's child. Most wrote simply to express sorrow, as if grieving for someone they'd never met, but somehow felt they knew. In an act both symbolic and heartbreaking, the Philadelphia Police Department unofficially adopted the boy, paying for his burial and tending to his grave. Officers visited on anniversaries, placing flowers in silence. The boy's identity remained locked away, but his face, America's unknown child, was etched into the national consciousness. He belonged to everyone and no one, a mystery that would not fade, no matter how many years passed. The name beneath the stone. For more than 6 decades, the boy in the box lay beneath a headstone marked only with the words, "America's unknown child." Generations of detectives came and went, each hoping to solve the mystery, each leaving the case a little colder. Then, in 2022, the stone was lifted once more, not for reburial, but for one final chance at answers. The exhumation was quiet, done under the watchful eyes of forensic experts and detectives who had carried the boy's photograph in their wallets for years. From the fragile remains, they extracted what technology had once been too primitive to capture: usable DNA. It was a thread, impossibly thin, but strong enough to pull a name from the shadows. Genealogists, part scientists, part detectives, set to work, uploading the DNA profile to public databases. Hours blurred into weeks as they pored over distant matches, building family trees that spanned states, decades, and untold secrets. Finally, a connection crystallized. The boy had a name: Joseph Augustus Zarelli, born in 1953, 4 years old when he died. The revelation was a seismic moment. Press conferences were called. Reporters leaned forward in silence as officials spoke the name aloud for the first time. It was as if the wind itself paused to listen. Yet, even with the name came an ache. Questions multiplied. Joseph's parents were identified. One still living, the other long gone. But neither came forward to explain. No family member stepped into the light to claim him, to tell his story, to give the world the missing pieces. For investigators, the silence was deafening. After 65 years, they had uncovered the truth of who Joseph was, but not why his life had ended the way it did. The stone would soon be recarved, no longer anonymous, but the boy's final chapter remained unwritten. And so, even with his name restored, Joseph Augustus Zarelli remained, just as he always had, a mystery that still lingered in the cold February air. Truth without justice. The revelation of Joseph Augustus. Zarelli's name should have brought closure. Instead, it opened a deeper wound. His identity was no longer a blank space, but the cruel absence of justice loomed larger than ever. Who could have done it? Investigators still wrestle with the same question that haunted the case in 1957. Was it a moment of uncontrolled violence, or a calculated act hidden behind closed doors? Why was he never reported missing? For 4 years, Joseph lived in this world, yet no neighbor, no relative, no teacher, or even a stranger came forward to say, "That child is gone." Was it fear, shame, or a deliberate effort to erase him from existence? And why the small, almost tender signs of post-mortem care? His hair had been freshly washed, his nails trimmed. He was wrapped in a blanket. Were these final acts of love from someone who regretted what they had done? Or a cold attempt to mislead investigators? Even now, detectives cling to fragments of truth and unyielding hope. Joseph's grave may bear his name at last, but the silence of those who know the answers continues to echo louder than any headline. The boy in the box has a name. He has a story. But until the day someone breaks the silence, his truth will remain incomplete, buried alongside the justice he never received. From mystery to memory, Joseph Augustus Zarelli's story is more than a tragedy. It's a turning point in how America confronts the silence surrounding vulnerable children. His case, once a cold file buried under decades of dust, pushed forward innovations in investigative work. From the earliest neighborhood canvassing to the modern power of forensic genealogy, the boy in the box became an unintentional teacher to law enforcement. Child welfare agencies, too, evolved. Cases of abuse and neglect began receiving sharper attention, fueled in part by the haunting reminder that a child could vanish from society's view without a single alarm raised. And then, the most symbolic change of all, the words on his headstone. For 65 years, it read simply, America's Unknown Child. Today, it bears his name, Joseph Augustus Zarelli, etched in stone for all to see. No longer a faceless emblem of loss, he is remembered as a boy who lived, whose laughter and tears once filled the air, and whose memory will not fade into anonymity again. His legacy is both a warning and a vow, that no child should vanish without a voice, and that justice, however delayed, is worth the fight. For decades, the boy in the box was a mystery without a name, a silent face staring back from faded photographs. Now, we know him as Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Knowing his name gives him back his humanity, a truth he was denied for so long. Yet the ache remains. The questions still whisper in the dark. Who hurt him, and why was he left alone in the cold? There is no trial, no justice served, only the echo of a life cut short. Sometimes the cruelest silence is the one that follows a child's cry. Joseph's story is more than history. It's a plea to never turn away, to speak for those who can't. What do you think happened to Joseph Augustus Zarelli? Share your thoughts, your theories, and your voice in the comments. Because even after all these years, his story isn't over.